Hey, good evening, everybody. Grant and Ryno walking down the final couple seconds of Minnesota and Dallas as the Timberwolves are trying to stay alive and get this series to a game five. Rangers and Panthers going to be going to overtime for the third game in a row. And we still talk about Bill Walton. Ryno, good to talk to you, man. I hope you had a good holiday weekend.
You as well, Napes. Happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I mean, it was good until I saw the news about Bill Walton, and I did my podcast on him today. I know you did a show on him earlier today. You know, I said I was blessed to be in his presence. I feel blessed to have done as many games as I did with him over a couple of year span. But I was blessed just to consider him a friend and him considering me a friend whenever he saw me. And there will never be another Bill Walton. He was truly unique. He was truly one of a kind.
Indeed. I heard some of your comments. I haven't listened to the podcast, but I heard you say 40 to 50 games. That's a lot with Bill.
Yeah.
Grant, he just connected with people on a different level. When Bill talked, you were captivated. You didn't know where it was going. That's for sure. But, I was not my friend, but I was lucky enough to be around him and Chris during my time at SDSU. And he was a huge advocate of the program and also San Diego in general. He was everything down there, Grant.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the exact number of games, and the number of games isn't important.
No.
Just getting to know him and all the stories from different people, such as, Luke Walton telling me what he was like as a dad, Scott Pollard being at the Walton's house when they were in high school, Danny Ainge, who I became very close with, sharing stories about playing with Bill in Boston. I got the whole gambit of stuff. It's pretty amazing indeed. So we'll see if you want to call and you want to reminisce about Bill, anything else. We're happy to do that. Kind of winding down in the Minnesota-Dallas game, and as soon as the game is over, we'll be more than happy to take your phone calls, your chat messages, and everything else, as I don't want to give away the score because we're all on different streams, and I believe I'm ahead of you, Ryno, and I believe I'm ahead of you by some 40 seconds. So I'll just hold on and wait a little bit.
Sounds good. The joys of cable television, Napes. You never know where it's at on a game these days.
Yeah, you never do know. And then hockey going to a third overtime or a third game in a row for overtime. Pretty amazing, that series between the Rangers and the Panthers. Pretty amazing.
Pretty darn amazing. Rangers fans, get some coffee tomorrow morning. Patrick, I apologize. It's a good reason to stay up, though.
Yeah, that's right. Very, very true. That's another thing. Get some coffee ready. I mean, the second game went to double overtime. Okay. So, yeah, that's pretty amazing considering that it's 11 o'clock on the East Coast and they're resurfacing the ice right now. And, the game goes on until somebody scores. So you're exactly right. If you're on the East Coast, and which, again, this is two cities on the East Coast, there are a lot of fans that are going to be tired in the morning. No doubt about that.
Yeah, but you East Coasters are used to it. Your late starts, your 9 p.m.
Yeah, we are.
You went through it for a long time.
We are used to it, but we're not used to waking up in the morning tired and we're like, oh my God, I got to go to work or I got to go to school. School was easier if you had the, particularly in college, I would just not go to school. I mean, but you didn't have that option, when you were living at home with mom and dad, that was not an option,
No. And you never wanted to pull one over mom and dad's eyes. You thought you were smarter than them at times, but they would always catch on if you tried to do the fake sick thing.
Yeah. Always. Yeah. So in college, it was like, yeah, I'm not doing it. But yeah, we made it through different times. And again, we look forward to having the more people join as soon as this game is over. And we'll talk about that with Minnesota and Dallas. I got to tell you one thing about the NBA playoffs, even though they're a lopsided series, all but one of the games have come down to the final possession or two. It's pretty amazing to me.
Yeah, and kind of take it back to hockey, Grant. The margin between these teams is just so thin. These teams are so good once they get to this point, and it makes for good basketball. You know what I am interested to see? Do you think the physicality will carry over to next season with the way the refs are calling it?
Boy, that's a great question. No, probably not. Playoffs and regular season can be different, so probably not. Minnesota's going to win this game, so I'm sure we'll start getting a lot of more people jump in, unless they do something really stupid, Minnesota's going to win this game and extend the series, which is really, the last thing Dallas needs right now. They got Luka particularly banged up, and
Yep.
they could use the extra time off. Luka even mentioned that after, game 3. No Derek Lively tonight for Dallas, and I think that really hurt them.
100%. Gaffer did his best to protect the rim, did a really good job. But when you had those Twin Towers down there, the athleticism is what separates them and the Twin Towers in Minnesota, in my opinion.
Yeah. So, again, unless Minnesota screws this up royally, they are going to win the game as they're up 105-100 with 11 seconds left.
Napes, to me, this feels like one Minnesota stole. Dallas had 30 points off of turnovers tonight. They had guys in major foul trouble. Towns 5, Gobert 5. They were hanging by a thread. In a game like this, how can it turn a series, Napes?
Yep. All over, Minnesota wins the game. And so they keep alive as they now trail 3-1. So 105-100, the final score.
There you go. Back to Minnesota. It doesn't take much to extend these things. You get another win under your belt at home. If you're Minnesota, they're smack right back in the middle of this thing.
Yeah, I don't know if they're right smack back in the middle of it, but they're alive. I think, if they win one more game, they're going to feel a lot better about themselves. But I wouldn't say they're right smack in the middle of it. I mean, they still got to win 3 more games in a row.
They do, but look at these playoffs. Look, somebody goes down. You just mentioned Luka. He needs the rest. He's being held together with duct tape. Hallie went down in the other East Coast series, so you never know. That's why you want to end it tonight on your home floor.
Yeah, very true. No question. I'm amazed at how close the Boston-Indiana series was, particularly even the last 2 games without Tyrese Halliburton. Yeah, I think the Celtics are very beatable. Now, I get the fact that they won 4 straight, but they could have easily lost 3 of those games like that.
Yeah, you make a great point. In fact, they look a little disinterested to me at times. When they need to come down the clutch, they got the guys to make big shots. They showed it last series, but I think they're ripe for the picking so long as a healthy team comes out of the West.
Yeah, that's true. So we'll see what happens. But again, the Western Conference Series extends. I know the NBA is happy about that. It would have been really bad for them from a TV perspective, a fan interest perspective. And not only that, you'd have to wait so long for the NBA Finals to start, and a lot of people would lose interest. So this is good news for the NBA tonight.
No doubt. And I don't think people were ready to know whether this would be the last sign-off of it on or inside the NBA either.
That's very true. No, they got next year too. Isn't that their final year?
I do not. I thought, okay, so they've got one more.
Yeah, next year will be the final year of their deal. Overtime has started in the Rangers and the Panthers. So we'll keep you up to date on that. All right. Anything you guys want to talk about? We'll take your phone calls or anything else. We are here. Very happy to have you here on the Tuesday night scrum following the game with the Mavs and the T-Wolves with Minnesota winning. So now in this series, you've got 3 road teams winning the 4 games so far.
Yeah, pretty incredible. Home court does not mean much at times, but both teams capable of winning on the road. I just, Minnesota, there's just something. Somebody said it tonight, Grant, that they just don't seem like they're together like they were. They didn't have a purpose like they did in the first 2 series. I say that. What do you say?
I say that, in my opinion, and I hate to pick on one person, I think Karl Anthony Towns is almost solely responsible for Minnesota losing the first 3 games. I really mean that. And I think Rudy Gobert also was invisible at times. So, yes, I'm saying it a different way that you're saying it. But,
Sure.
yes, it does look very odd to me.
His 3-point shot, Towns, terrible coming into tonight, and he hits all of them, or at least up until what I saw, which was big for them. But it's just an awkward group. What do you do with Towns? You either put him on the perimeter or you put him down low. You don't want him anywhere in between.
Florida has scored in overtime on a power play, so that series is now 2-2. And that's going to be I can't see that series not going 7 games. So after 2 straight overtime losses, Florida wins in overtime on a power play 3-2. You don't normally see a lot of penalties in overtime, but Florida got one, and they took advantage of it. And they now, again, have evened up that series at 2-2. Um, as far as the NBA playoffs and everything else that are, I think home court, home field, home ice is becoming, and home ice has never been the issue, but it seems to me, and I don't know what the reason is, but in the NFL, home field advantage is not that big of a deal anymore. It just isn't. You see wild card teams go to the Super Bowl all the time now. You see teams, look at what happened last year in the playoffs, right? I mean,
Yeah.
being the number one seed isn't what it used to be. And I don't know if it's the technology involved. I don't know what it is, but home field in the NFL does not seem to be nearly as important as it used to. And I think that now we're starting to see that more in the NBA as well.
It's a good point. I mean, you think about the way these guys travel, and I mean, Grant, how much goes into it that you can bring? First off, fans are traveling a lot more than they used to, in my opinion, but also for the players. It seems like the technology, the medical staffs, it's not
Maybe.
as big of a deal being on the road as it used to be back in the days.
Yeah, whatever it is just changing. This question, granted, if you talk to Bill Walton a lot, go check out today's podcast on ifyoudon'tlikethat.com or your favorite podcast platform. I spend the entire podcast talking about Bill Walton. So go check out my podcast. Again, ifyoudon'tlikethat.com or your favorite podcast platform and check it out. I don't know what the reason is. All I know is that home court doesn't seem the way it used to be in the NBA. I mean, look at all the series that have been played so far. Look at all the road teams that have won playoff games.
Yeah, and games, like you said, teams have also been close to winning. The Pacers could have easily stolen two. But analytics, I'm not going to say it's that. I mean, you would know better than me. I mean, the eyeball test, anything changed to you?
Well, I know in the NFL, I think the technology with the quarterback being able to get the play in the headset, before he gets up, 15 seconds before the play clock expires. I think that has something to do with it. I think it's easier. Now you have teams that are so adept at going no huddle and going silent count on the road. Yep. I mean, Peyton Manning was probably the best in the history of the NFL of doing that. And I think that's changed the way you approach games on the road. And so you kind of are able to negate the crowd. Whereas in the past, you could barely even call out the play in the huddle and have everyone hear it. Now it's a little bit different. So I think there are a couple of factors involved. And I also think in the NFL, you don't have that super team anymore. If you look at the different eras of the NFL, if you begin in the 70s, let's say, you had super teams, right? You had like the Steelers, winning 4 in a row. Then you had, Dallas, you had San Francisco, right? You had the Giants, you had that Bears team. Then you had, again, in the 90s, you had the teams that were dominant, that were clearly a super team. By super team, I mean clearly the best team in the NFL. You don't have that anymore. The parity in the NFL, I call it mediocrity, but the parity in the NFL, I mean, when the playoffs began last year, we were talking about we could see 5 or 6 teams in the AFC representing the conference in the Super Bowl. We never used to be saying that 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Grant, it's funny. I think you hit on something really important. The silent counts, the kills, you'll have 4 or 5 different plays that you can go to. The guys are more used to it, but the offenses that teams are running are so similar. I would say the defense is much more nuanced than the offense, and that could be a reason for lack of separation as well.
Yeah, could very well be. Interesting comment here from Steven. Watching these games make me realize just how far our Kings are, Ryan and Grant. I would agree with you. They are far, at least the way the roster looks today. Now, that could change. We could be having a different opinion on this in 2 months from now after free agency. By the way, speaking of the Kings, I wanted to get into this with you. There's a report that contract talks have stalled with Mike Brown, and I actually am in the minority on this. I think that's a good thing. There's no reason to give Mike Brown a new contract right now. He's only been there 2 years. He made the playoffs 1 year. He missed the playoffs the second year, and he's under contract for next year and an option the following year. If I were the the Kings, I wouldn't give Mike Brown a new deal either. I wouldn't even talk to him about a new deal. I haven't seen enough of Mike Brown. People go, gee, the Kings were the 3rd seed last year and won 48 games. Look where they were before that. Yeah, they also had Domantas Sabonis and didn't have him before that. Look at that. And again, I'm not saying Mike Brown's not a good coach. What I'm saying is there's no reason to give him a new deal. I wouldn't give him a new deal. And I think that, Vivek Ranadive, as much as I despise him as an owner, has been burned repeatedly by giving individuals new contracts when he didn't have to. And he's still paying, a fortune, and the owner's money, he's paying a fortune in salaries on wasted contracts because he gives someone a new deal and then he fires them in a year. So why would he want to do that again? I'm not sold on Mike Brown as a no ifs, ands, or buts about a coach for Sacramento. Go out and prove yourself to me again this year. Get the team in the playoffs and show some improvement, and then we'll sit down and we'll take care of you. But right now, after 2 years, I wouldn't give him a new deal.
See, I'm on the other side of the fence. The last part of what you said, sit down and we'll take care of you. I'm not so sure about that. And I think you're right overall. But for this fan base, Grant, it's just too much of that PTSD. And here's the bottom line. There's controllables and there's things you can't control. The roster is not something Mike Brown controls. So when guys go down, injuries happen. This team stepped up and filled roles that we didn't know some guys could do. Davion Mitchell really played well down the stretch, and Mike Brown was forced into a corner there, and you still win 2 games less than last year. I just think with all of the coaches, which, again, valid point on your behalf of what Vivek's paying, this window, I think we're seeing it, that this is closer to a house of cards than a solid foundation for this Sacramento team.
Well, to me, there are a lot of good coaches out there that you could get to replace Mike Brown in a second. And so I wouldn't give him a new deal.
But when you say that, who are the coaches you think of?
There's a lot of coaches available. I mean, there's all kinds of coaches available that are out there. I mean, there's numerous coaches that are on the market that are available. There's top of the line, long-time assistant coaches that are getting jobs and are proving to do very good. To me, I'm not downplaying the role of a coach. Okay. I'm not downplaying the role of a coach, but this is a players' league. It's not a coach's league.
It is. You're spot on. It is. But I just, Grant, to me, Coach Brown, it's been a culture change. Whether you like that they didn't make the playoffs or not, there's been a change. And I think the veil that the problem is here is the uncertainty of exactly what happened, Grant, last season. We don't know why they were losing bad games to bad teams. We don't know why De'Aaron didn't talk to the media for 16 days.
That's a reflection on the coach. I think that's a coach issue, and that's another reason why I want to give Mike Brown a deal, because I don't know if De'Aaron Fox is sold on Mike Brown, because what I saw last year, I mean, my eyes tell me that there's some issues there, and that concerns me. And De'Aaron Fox is the franchise, and if it comes down to Mike Brown or De'Aaron Fox, I know which way I'm going.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you there, but then those things need to be aired out. Those things need to be figured out. 'Cause guess what? You got a decision on both of those guys right around the same time. De'Aaron, after next year, is only under contract for another full year. So I don't know. I don't necessarily agree, though, that that's all on the coach in coaching. I mean,
well, you see this comment by Zach. I disagree with this 100%. Oh my God, Grant, we let go of Brown. We're back in the same cycle all over again during the drought. Give me a break. No, you're wrong. Okay, you're wrong. You think Mike Brown's the only coach that can coach the Kings to 45 or more wins a season? Stop it. I mean, that's absurd. I mean, it's stupid. Okay, it comes down to the talent on your team, the players that you have. That's really what it boils down to. Again, I'm not anti Mike Brown. I'm not. Don't keep Mike Brown. Fire Mike Brown. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, after 2 years with a year and an option left on his deal, there's absolutely no reason to give him a new contract right now, because you don't have to. Give him a new deal after next year or in the middle of the year. There's no reason to give him a new deal now.
I don't know. That option grant is funky. I think both parties play a role in it. The Kings and Mike Brown. There's been reports Mike Brown would decline the option as
Then good.
far.
Then go. Bye. Good.
Well,
Go. We'll get
he
another
wants
coach.
to, Nate. Okay, but in Sacramento, it's not that easy. I mean, you know better than anybody else.
Well,
What has Monty McNair done for Mike Brown in the last 2 years? What has he done?
what has he done?
Yes,
Well, he got him Domantas Sabonis, right?
correct. Well, yeah,
I
Domas
mean,
was
Mike
here
wasn't
before.
there. Mike was
Yeah,
that Mike. I mean, Mike inherited Domantas. You know, he was
correct.
there for what 25 games
Yeah,
before Mike Brown came in. I mean, so when Mike took the job, he had a pretty nice roster, right? He got a Malik Monk, correct?
he did get him Malik Monk.
Okay, well, I mean, that's pretty good considering that had Malik not been injured this year at the end of the season, he probably would have been the sixth man of the year. So Monty did a hell of a job getting him that individual, getting him, a guy that was tremendous off the bench.
Yeah, I think that Malik also exceeded all expectations from anybody, probably including himself, if you asked him that he'd lead the league in scoring off the
And,
bench 2 years in a row.
and he drafted Keegan Murray for him, who ended up being a tremendous draft pick. So I mean, Monty's given him a nice team to play with.
Yeah, but wouldn't you say Monty just did his job? Like by drafting Keegan Murray, you're supposed to make a good draft pick. Grant, these teams that are getting better, Dallas, they make a couple moves at the deadline. And mind you, it's the second deadline in the row. The Kings don't try to make an improvement and the Kings stand still. I mean, I think part of that is just as much on the front office. And I'm a huge Monty McNair guy. I think every move he's made has been prudent, but he's been reactive rather than proactive.
Listen, you know how I feel about this team. I said it back in November that I saw issues with this team. I was very consistent with that. I said I'm
Yes.
very concerned about the inconsistency of the team. I'm very concerned that they have lulls that are inexplicable. I didn't change my tune pretty much the whole season on the Kings. And when everyone was talking about the playoffs and the seed and everything, I said,
Yep.
this was back in February. I said, well, you first of all shouldn't be talking about the playoffs because you got to make the playoffs. And people go, oh, they're going, and I was very consistent. I said, you've got to make the playoffs first in this Western Conference. And they didn't make the playoffs. And I'm sorry, I don't care how you chalk it up. Not making the playoffs this past year was a step back for this organization. I don't think there's any other way to say it.
Yeah, I think it's a sidestep because of the injuries. Maybe I'm being too kind. That's the fan in me, but certainly the expectations were at least a playoff series. And I think what makes it worse is you see teams like Dallas, teams like Minnesota in there, and the Kings think, an owner thinks, hey, maybe if we would have just done this one little thing, that should have been us, which turns up the volume a little bit with that pressure.
And I don't disagree with you on Monty McNair being quiet at the trade deadline, whereas I see what you point out very well, what Dallas did, for instance, and it really changed the makeup of their team. So, yeah, I hear you, and I'm not ignoring what you're saying, and I'm not dismissing what you're saying because you make a very good point. But I guess what I'm trying to say is it's not like Mike Brown's coaching chopped liver here. He's got a nice roster.
Yes, he has an above average roster. There's no doubt
Right.
about that. But wouldn't you say it's against the norm in today's NBA to be going into the lame duck year, as they say, even though there's an option?
See, I don't look at it that way. I don't think he is going into a lame duck year. I think if you were to not give him a new deal next year and the option was picked up, then that's a lame duck year. So no, I don't think so. And I'm a firm believer when you sign a contract, you honor your contract, and his contract still has 1 full year left on it and an option. It doesn't say that after 2 years we're going to renegotiate your contract. That's not what his contract says.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Right?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But at the
Right.
same time, I feel like he's done enough to where, look, you extend Sabonis the way you did. I understand that was a good move to keep Domas here, but the timing of it wasn't necessarily great. That's money that could have been used. Go ahead.
All right, here's the other issue that goes on that I'm very well aware of from 32 years of covering in the NBA. At the end of the season, they do exit interviews.
Yes.
Okay. And sometimes in the exit interviews, things aren't what they appear to be inside the locker room because the players can speak freely. So what happens I'm asking you this question.
Yeah.
What happens if the exit interviews, one or two or three or any number of players express some criticism or doubt about your head coach? Doesn't that give you pause?
Sure.
Okay. So, maybe that happened. I'm going to go
That's a
back to
fair
what I
point.
saw with my eye, with what I saw with my eyes this year. De'Aaron Fox didn't look right to me for way too many games. Okay. And what did we talk about on the postgame show? We had people calling up saying he's got personal problems. He's got this. He's got that, right? He went without 3 weeks for talking to the media. There were some other issues that we found, or I found, puzzling. Who's to say that's not something going on with the coach? I'm not trying to start a rumor here. I'm just saying fans just automatically assume that everything's great because the team won 48 games and then 46 wins. And don't mess things up because everything's great. We don't know that everything's great. You don't know what the relationship is between Mike Brown and Monty McNair. You don't know what the relationship is between Mike Brown and his best players. You think you know, but you don't know. And so, my opinion, based on the history of this franchise, see, I'm looking at the history of this franchise, and the history of particularly this owner.
Yes.
Would tell me there's not any way in hell I'm giving this coach a new contract this summer. Okay. If I'm the owner of this team and I've made so many stupid ass mistakes and given away millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to players and coaches that don't even work for me, I'm not doing the same mistake again. So I'm not even talking. I mean, the fact that they were even negotiating a new deal surprised me.
Yeah, you know what, Grant? You bring up a very fair point. We are talking about an NBA in which coaches can win championships and then be fired a year later, like Mike Budenholzer. So
yes,
if you apply that principle, JB Bickerstaff, to
look at Monty Williams and what he did in Phoenix in his first year, and then he's gone.
Exactly. Great point there. And so, maybe I'm looking at this at too small of a scale, too personal of a scale, and not taking that step back.
Yeah. Well, it's all an interesting conversation, and I wanted to get into this with you tonight. I'm on record. I'm not anti Mike Brown. I'm not get rid of Mike Brown. I'm not firing Mike Brown. That's not what I'm saying. But if I were the one writing the checks, there's no way in hell I'm giving him a new deal this summer. Not a chance.
Yeah. Well, it could cost Vivek a lot of money if this team makes a run next year. He's going to have a good argument.
Cost him a lot of money. If they make a run next year, he'll make a lot of money. If they make the playoffs and win a series, he'll have plenty of money to pay whoever he wants because he'll have a lot more income.
This is true.
Plain and simple. Hey, before we get to Baki, I want to tell you about our friends at New Works Plumbing. They've got a fix for you for your plumbing needs and repairs. Just go to sackserviceplumbing.com or call the number on your screen. That's New Works Plumbing, available 24/7 for all of your plumbing needs and repairs. sackserviceplumbing.com will get you there. And again, New Works Plumbing. They are awesome. New Works Plumbing, they've got a fix for you.
Let's bring on our buddy from Serbia, Baki. Welcome to Tuesday Night Postgame.
What's up, guys?
What's up there, buddy? Good. How are you?
I'm fine. Well, interesting talk about the coaching stuff and particularly Mike Brown, because for me, Mike Brown is one of the biggest question mark in the Sacramento complete. I'm totally agree with you, Grant, about all this, because remember last season, after that playoff entering and after so much years without a playoff, we thought we already now we have finally we have a great coach after Walton, and I think everybody was very upset with Walton the year before, and after a great year last year, even though we fell out from the playoffs from the Golden State, we thought the Mike Brown has something with this team, something with the rooster, which is very good, which can be some kind of progress. So after this year, I mean, what what can you expect from? I mean, normal thinking about it is, why would you have a contract extension for many years if you are? I mean, I am confused after this year. Haven't you? Uh, I don't know what do you think about after this season, but I mean, this
I'm
is the first.
confused with what I saw from De'Aaron Fox. What I saw from De'Aaron Fox shouldn't have happened, and I want to know how much of that has to do with the coach.
If we go, okay, it can be, I mean, 90% of the coach, but we don't know. You are right. How can we know what is between coach and, for example, the Aaron Fox?
They
Or
know. They know within the walls of the team. They
they know,
know. There's
but
no.
we
We don't
don't.
know, but they know.
Yeah, yeah, we don't. So we can all speculate here. We can talk 10 days what is going on, and we can be wrong completely, right? So uh, I would be very careful about that those contracts with everybody. Well, as Ryno said, doing it with Sabonis is for me great stuff, to make that contract with him. But with Mike Brown, you don't know. And once again, you're right, Grant. I mean, this is a league of the players, not the coaches. I mean, tell me one coach in this season or the previous one who is something extra, who did something extra with the team, so the team was great for. I mean, Miami Heat went into the finals because of great great plays of Butler and Adebayo and other players. So
I don't
once
know if I would have.
now,
I don't know if I would totally agree with that. There are some coaches that are exceptional, and their consistency with various rosters, like Rick Carlisle, to me, is an exceptional
Yeah.
coach. I mean, he's won 50 plus games with multiple franchises, including a championship in Dallas.
that's
He's
right.
one of those special coaches, okay, because he's done it with so many different teams. Okay, that stands out to me.
Okay, okay.
A
You
guy
you
like
you did a great example for the Carlisle. Okay, so for me, Steve Kerr is great coach. I mean, he
how do
has
you
a.
know?
I think he's seeing the game. I saw a lot of him, not only on the floor but on the practice, on the something out of the floor. So I think
Okay,
he's great,
I'm
but
gonna jump
he's
in here for a
being
minute. When
old.
Steve Kerr left the team for more than a half a year, Luke Walton coached the team and actually coached them to a better record than Steve Kerr. And so the point I'm trying to make is, you know, how good of a coach is Steve Kerr when he had Hall of Famers to be on the floor and one of the best players of the entire generation in Steph Curry. Again, I'm not knocking Steve Kerr, but I don't know how good of a coach Steve Kerr is. I mean, he had a very good roster this year, and they didn't make the playoffs. All right.
Okay,
So
me
again,
neither.
I don't
Me
know how
neither,
good of a
Grant.
coach Steve Kerr is.
But okay, I'm just looking for something which I saw is something. Okay, a few times I saw from Kerr calling some plays, and he said after the game, we called that play, that play, that play, and those plays. I saw those games again, so I saw those plays are very good
I
drawings
like
and
Steve Kerr.
right.
Again, I like him. I think he is a good coach. But I mean, you can't comparing Steve Kerr to Rick Carlisle is the reason why I brought Rick Carlisle up is because he's done it in multiple situations. Okay, he goes to Detroit and wins 50 games for crying out loud, right? He
Yep.
goes to Dallas and he wins a championship there. Then he goes to Indiana and look what he did with the Pacers this year, right?
Yes,
Steve Kerr's only
I
coached
agree.
one team with basically the same nucleus every single year.
I totally agree. If you ask me, I will hire him tomorrow, right away.
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Anyway, so if you're let's get back to the Kings for a minute. So I want to make sure we're hearing you correctly. If you're the owner of the Kings, you're not giving Mike Brown a contract extension currently, correct?
I will not give him a contract extension currently, but I will continue to give him a chance, maybe one season. So let's see what will happen next season. That's my point. If
Me
it's
too.
possible,
Me
if
too.
it's possible to have him another year, I don't want to say I would like to be coach to be. fired. I'm not like that, but I would not give him a contract for 3-4 years. Definitely.
Okay.
I mean,
All
I'm
right.
I'm 100% with you. Everything you said about this for me is true, because I don't know. I don't know. Okay, we have one good year. Okay, last year was maybe not A plus, but it's maybe A. Okay, but this one, what will okay, it was stronger. I know West was harder to get, and whole league was okay, but as Ryno said, we had some injuries that happened in the very bad time. We lost Monk in the crucial time, so it
I mean,
is affect it,
see,
it
I
it
don't
is
think Mike
affecting the
Brown did
team.
a really good job this year. I mean, that's my opinion. I don't. They had way too much fluctuation, too much inconsistency. Their point differential was terrible among all the top 10 teams in the West. They blew way too many leads. They were blown out of way too many games. I don't think Mike Brown coached a good year.
Not
And
only
that
that, statistics.
yeah,
Okay, you mentioned right now a lot of statistics. He was bad in this and that, but also I remember every game. I'm looking every
I
game.
know.
Even I'm watching it tomorrow again and analyzing with friends and by myself. And he did very very confusing things on the floor in particular games. So we lost some games very unbelievable. I mean, this was the season with many unbelievable
And
losses.
And he got criticized last year after Game 7 for, not playing Davion Mitchell, who done a
He
very
did.
nice job on Steph Curry and put Davis out there, and Steph went off for 50. And what happened after that series? We were all happy as Kings fans, but what happened? There was a
Oh,
lot of criticism on Mike Brown and that decision for Game 7. Was there not, guys?
100%, Apes.
I I do, but for me, if you ask me, last year's out in Game 7 is not only about that. I mean, we saw maybe unexperienced Sabonis making so many errors last year, but last year is last year.
Yeah.
Let's
Hey,
let's
Baka, you know
focus
who
on the
Melvin,
next.
do you know Melvin? Is it a Jinka? Somebody wants
Sorry,
to ask you about Melvin. Is it a Jinka that the Kings would want him for the 45th pick? Somebody wants to ask you a question. Do you know who this player is?
I don't.
I don't either. So the answer to that question is no, he doesn't.
Who's a Jinka?
I don't know. Hey, buddy, it's always good having you on the program. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You take care.
Take care.
Again, I'm going to emphasize what I just said because I've been on both sides of the fence. And this is not a slant on the fans. This is the truth. Fans make blanket statements and they have no idea what the hell they're talking about. They assume, but they don't really know. Trust me, I've been through it. I used to laugh at the things that the fans would say, and they were so far off the mark that I actually felt bad for them. But then I said, well, how would they know? They're not within the walls of the organization.
Sure.
It's just like, Ryan, I don't know what's going on with your family and your house. I wouldn't come on and try to tell everyone about, your family and the dynamics because I don't know. I'm not in your house.
Sure.
Okay. The same way you wouldn't be able to say that about my house. I may think after being out with your family in public, or I might think that I know, but I don't really know. Okay.
Sure.
So the fans watch the games and they listen to the players in their post-game press conferences and they read stories and they think that they know everything. Well, they really don't. And there's so many things that they don't know. They don't know about riffs that aren't made public. They don't know about the individuals that butt heads in a franchise. They have no idea. And so just always keep that in mind, okay? There's just
Yeah.
always, please don't ever forget that.
Yeah, no, it's a great point, Grant. And I think that's part of what leads to so much speculation, especially here in Sacramento on behalf of the fans, because there's that yearn. We need to know. We can operate in the facts. And actually, we'll do that in a second. We'll bring on the NBA guru, Zach. He's been waiting. And I know that you've got some thoughts. I'll let you go, Zach. What do you think about this conversation?
Yeah, I really would like Mike Brown extended for sure. I think he did a great, he's been doing a good job for the last 2 years. He's brought the playoffs for us in the first time in 16 years, as we all know. And I think it was a little underwhelming, but with what he had, the bench that he had, the injuries at the end of the year, the tougher year within the West, he got 46 wins. I know he was a little short of the playoffs, and it was tough to see us not make it, but he deserves an extension of at least 2-3 years. He's a 60.
Yeah, he also coached a game that lost to the very worst teams in the NBA repeatedly. He lost to Detroit, he lost to Washington, he lost to Charlotte, he lost to Portland. He lost 4 worst teams in the NBA. He also lost games too. All right, and listen, yeah, I can list a lot of the positives that he did too. He did a lot of good things, but he also had a lot of things that happened this year that I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
But do we think that it was his fault that Herter had to make his worst career, one of his worst career seasons? Is it his fault that Keegan wasn't inconsistent? Was it his fault that Fox was not as good as last year? Was it his fault?
Maybe it was.
Possibly.
I don't know.
Possibly.
Maybe, but I think it's hard to say it would be on him. Like, what would be the reasons for that? I mean, what could be the possibilities? The bench wasn't that good this year. I don't think.
Well, what happened if De'Aaron Fox walked into his post-game exit interview with Monty McNair in a one-on-one situation and said, "I don't like playing for Mike Brown"? Now, I'm not saying that's what happened, but I'm just saying I don't really like what the coach of, then what would you do? I mean, again, I'm not saying that happened. I'm giving you a scenario because you don't, and I don't know what was said in those exit interviews, and I don't know what the dynamic is between Mike Brown and Monty McNair, although I've heard there are some issues.
Yeah.
But the one thing I'd say is that I know Fox and that the Kings team did not enjoy Dave Yeager's harshness when he was coaching. So that they fired him and they got Luke Walton, who's supposed to be a more easygoing coach, doesn't give a lot take people responsible for if they're doing bad stuff. And he got fired after a while. So
he got fired after he just received a brand new contract extension by Vivek. And so Vivek had to pay Luke 3 extra years, the same way he had to pay Dave Yeager all 3 extra years, the same way he had to pay Vlade Divac. Vlade is still getting paid by the Kings, by the way, for his general manager role. So, I mean, if you're Vivek and you've seen multiple years of salary go out the window because you gave an individual a new contract before you had to, that's going to make you very leery to do it again.
I would say if the Kings, let's just say I'm with you, and the Kings and Mike Brown's not the coach for us. The players don't really like him, and he did not a great job. Why don't you just replace him right now? Why would you do this tug of war thing? If you don't think he's going to be good in a couple of years, then why don't you just get rid of him now?
Who's to say that they wouldn't? I mean, I don't know. I think Ryan also makes a good point. There is a lot of public pressure on this franchise right now because they finally have the ship going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. And, the fan base may revolt if you were to do something like that. I'm not in that camp, Zach. I'm not saying get a new coach right now. What I'm saying is 2 years to me is not a big enough sample size when you had 1 year in the playoffs and 1 year not in the playoffs. I need 1 more year before I'm going to open up my checkbook and give a guy a new 4-year contract. I'm just not doing it.
That's fair. I just think it just depends how much you think it's on the players and how much you think it's on the coach. I think it just comes down to that. But I just don't know who else we could even potentially get. But the bigger thing is I just don't see it as a good sign for draft play. People, if we're in the draft conversation, when we're trying to trade for players, when we're trying to get some free agents. I mean, that's going to be, you think if Monk likes Mike Brown, maybe he doesn't, but that could be something that he wouldn't like to see, that if we don't re-sign him to extend him, that's just not stable.
Yeah, Malik Monk has said repeatedly he wants to start, correct?
Yeah.
All right. Did Mike Brown start Malik Monk?
No.
Was Malik Monk deserving to start?
I'm not 100% for that. I think he was.
Okay, I'm not saying that you're for that, but before Keon Ellis emerged onto the scene and Kevin Huerter was struggling so much, and Kevin Huerter was down earlier in the year, they didn't start Malik Monk.
I personally like Monk off
I understand that. I understand that. But if you're Malik Monk and you want to start and you feel like you should have started and that you deserve to start and you didn't start all year because the coach didn't feel that was the best interest of the team, and you now can go to a different team, i.e. Orlando, who says we're going to pay you $20 million more and we're going to start you, you're packing your bags, correct?
Yeah, if you're getting paid more money and you're getting a starting job, there's no doubt about that.
And again, it's not what how do I want to say this? Doesn't matter whether the player's right or not, because I've been around a lot of players that feel they should start. I'll give you a perfect example. Buddy Hield. I never thought Buddy's best role was a starter. To me, Buddy's his best role would be a sixth man.
Yep.
But in Buddy's mind, he felt that he was one of the best players on the team. In Buddy's mind, he thinks he's one of the best players on the league. He's a little delusional that way. But Buddy wanted to be a starter and was very upset when he was moved to the bench, even though I personally feel that would be his best role, and I think he could be a sixth man of the year. But a lot has to do with a player's mentality, guys, and what they think they're worth and what their value is and where they should be. And a lot of times they're stubborn. And I'm not saying that's Malik Monk, but he's been on the record as saying he wants to start, and he feels he's a starter in this league.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, that could be speculative. Like, I think that could be potential that he doesn't, he wants to start, and if he gets paid more, obviously he'd go somewhere else, and if he gets the starting gig. But he's had said that he wants to be here, he likes it here and stuff like that. So it's also a possibility that they don't really have any beef or anything, So
and he does want to be here. He does like playing here. I know that for a fact. He does like playing in Sacramento, and he does like it. That's I'm glad you brought that point up, because that's an important one.
Yeah. So it's just tough to say, like, what the like you were saying, like, what's the stuff going inside the locker room or between Monty and all these players and the organization. We just don't know what kind of beef there is, or if there is any beef, or what if they just started negotiations, that could be something, or if he's asking for 6 years and $60 million, and Kings wanted to give him like 3 for 30. We don't know the years. I know it's been reported that he's trying to get 10 to 12, which I think is fair, but for 6 years, I probably wouldn't do it, obviously.
No.
If he's trying to get 2 to 3 years, I think it's fair to do it. So
you're talking about Mike Brown getting 10 to 12 million a year?
Yeah, that's
I wouldn't give Mike Brown 10 to 12 million a year. I would say if that's what you're looking for, you can leave now. We're not giving you 10 to 12 million a year. There's no need to give him 10 to 12 million a year, and I think that's absurd.
But that's the market rate right now.
That's fine. Then I'll go out and get another coach at the market rate. I'm not giving Mike Brown 10 to 12 million a year.
You think you can get a better coach for 6 to 8 million?
Again, I don't think it's a coach's league. I think it's a player's league, and I think there are a lot of good coaches available that could come in and do a very good job. I like Mike Brown. I'm not trying to run Mike Brown out of town. I'm not anti-Mike Brown. I'm actually pro Mike Brown, but I'm not giving him that kind of money after 2 years. I'm just not.
Guys,
go out and win 50 games this year. Okay, go out and win 50 games this year. And I'll have a contract all written up that we'll just leave on your desk, and it will be post dated to June 1st of 2025. And if you win 50 games, here it is. You can sign your contract.
Yeah, guys, there's a couple things we're not considering here too, and I'm in the camp that I think he should be extended. The first is Jordi Fernandez is gone. He was the Kings' lead assistant, and he was big with the defense. So he's in Brooklyn now. The second thing, we've always talked about the identity of this Kings team, a Mike Brown team. What does that mean? We can't say this team's a three-point shooting team. Every team in the league is a three-point shooting team. So to you, Zach, to you, Grant, to the chat, it's what is the identity of this Sacramento Kings team? And I don't think anybody can give us an answer.
And I'll give you one more question on that. If Mike Brown were to leave the Kings today, would he get another job as a head coach in the NBA? And I'm not so sure he would. I'm not saying he wouldn't, but I mean, I don't know if there would be like teams lining up waiting to interview him immediately.
Sure, that's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, there's not that many teams right now. They're kind of past that part where they're trying to hire all the coaches. I think Washington maybe has a spot. I know Charlotte, I think they just got one. But yeah, there's not a lot of potential, and that's probably why the Kings are trying to play a little tug and war here, because they think that if you don't want to stay here, then you got to go somewhere else. But there's not that many hiring spots right now. But
I
yeah,
see a message that the Lakers would jump at him. He's already been to the Lakers and got fired.
yeah, there's no chance of him going there.
No.
But yeah, I mean, 61. I mean, like, yeah, Mike Brown. I mean, but that's what's been reported. Those are the numbers I'm giving you, 10 to 12 million, and so that's what he wants. And so,
Well, good luck. You know what? If I was Mike Brown, I'd want 10 to 12 million too. But if I'm Vivek Ranadive, I'm not giving him. I'm not even talking to him. I'm just saying, hey, this conversation is over with his agent. Whoever's representing Mike Brown, I'm hanging up the phone, and we're not going there. So
do you think?
go out.
I think like Mike Boonholzer, I think he's getting 10 million. He's just getting a contract for 10 million. I know Monty got around
Mike
12.
Brown's not Mike Budenholzer.
But Budenholzer also had like Giannis at his prime and stuff like that. So it's just hard to compare too, with stuff like that. So I don't know. I mean, I think he deserves the 10 million personally. So if he's getting 2 to 3 years for 30 million, I'd do it. Like I was saying, but I know Grant's not for this. Grant is not.
I'm not doing it. You know what? I'm not doing it because I don't have to do it. That's why I'm not doing it. I don't have to do it. I'm not in the business to make people feel good. That's not how I'm running my team when people are under contract. I'm not Santa Claus, okay? I'm not. There's no reason to, because here's what I'm smart enough to know, okay? If Mike Brown goes out and does a good job, okay, he's going to take the contract that I'm going to offer him because he's going to get the money that he wants. And this is the situation that he wants to be in. And he's not going to gamble about not coming back for his fourth year and going somewhere else when he can get what he wants here in Sacramento. So again, this is not like a make you feel good league. It's professional sports. Okay. I'm not Santa Claus as an owner. I'm not giving him a new deal because I don't have to give him a new deal. And so come talk to me next summer. That's how I'm running my team.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I guess it also, like we were talking about earlier, how the players perceive him. If the players like him, and I don't want to really start over and be looking like an unstable franchise firing this guy after getting us some decent seasons, I don't want to mess that up. So personally, I'm going to pay up. So if the Sabonis and Fox, they like Brown, we don't know. We don't know exactly if they like him. If they don't like him, I'd be maybe a little bit on your side, that we don't need to pay him money and we can find someone else that they might like. But if they like him and the whole team, they're showing some more improvement, that we're on the right direction. And
here's your other option. Let's say hypothetically that you give Mike Brown a new deal right now. Okay? Let's say you give whatever, make up, I don't care what the numbers are. Let's say you sign him to a new deal. And let's say the Kings win in the low 40s or 45 games next year and don't make the playoffs. Who do you think's going to be fired? Monty McNair, right?
Yep.
So then what happens? You have a head coach, and now you bring in a general manager who really wants to bring in his own coach, but now you can't because you just gave your coach a new deal when you don't have to give your coach a new deal. One more reason why you don't give Mike Brown a new deal. Mike Brown gets a new deal when Monty McNair gets a new deal.
Yeah.
That's how it works. You don't hire a head coach when you have your general manager in limbo. Doesn't work like that. You make sure that they are aligned. Successful franchises, good franchises in all sports do their best when the head coach and the general manager are aligned contractually. That's another reason why I wouldn't do it.
That's fair. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I hope we'll see what the Kings do because it is a little bit in limbo, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
And did Monty McNair sign an extension last summer?
He did. Yes.
Yeah, what was it? 2 years?
3.
3 years, but the third year was an option, right?
I believe so. I don't know.
So he's got 2 years left on his deal.
So the Kings, you would say the Kings would need to sign him up for 2 more years for Mike Brown.
I would.
Yeah,
because to me, if you're really going to show everyone that you're unified and you're going in the right direction, I want my head coach and my general manager to be aligned contractually.
Great point. Yeah. Great point.
And it might very well be where, next season we don't do well and it looks bad that we did re-sign him for an extension and stuff. But I think it's a decent risk to make because of the direction that we're going.
Great stuff, Zach. Appreciate you.
Guys. Thank you.
Good job,
conversation.
Zach.
Ryno, I want to talk to you about Bennett's real quick. There are 3 locations in Sacramento, Roseville, and the West Side Grill. Don't forget about their Sips and Taste happy hours from 2 to 6 every day with many, many wines starting at $14 or less, many available at $6. They have tremendous share plates, appetizers, food's great, prime seafood and steak at Bennett's. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com for more information, make a reservation and more. That's bennettsrestaurants.com.
Whew, I'm gonna have to go there tonight to see if they're gonna have the mushroom soup this week. Yeah, that one's a killer, Napes. That's a reason.
Well, if they do
on
call me, I'll hop on a plane and I wouldn't say I'll be able to join you because it's going to take quite a while for me to get there, but I'll do my best.
I love it. Alex, welcome in. How you doing tonight, buddy?
Good. About yourself? Sorry about the late get on, but had a busy day.
Happy to have you.
How's your guys' night?
Good, thank you. We appreciate you joining us. What can we do for you?
Yeah, just a quick couple topics. So, during the past weekend and last week, of course, the Mike Brown stuff came out. And my first thought was, oh man, Grant was right. Grant said about a few months ago, if the Kings don't make the playoffs, we're gonna do some crazy things. And of course it hasn't happened yet, but we're already hearing rumblings of what might happen with Brown. Is he gonna even sign back and all that? And that's my first thought was, man, Grant was right. I was trying not to believe him, but he was right. Stuff might start.
I know how the owner thinks. I know about the owner. I was around him every day not every day, but I know a lot. Okay. I know a lot. I know how he does things.
Yeah. And I'm not saying I didn't believe you, but of course, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want to assume the worst, and the worst hasn't happened yet, but just, it's kind of weird what's happening right now so far. And to the other caller, the conversation you were having, I guess none of us do really know. What if, I know Monk and Brown had their little tiffs during the season, and maybe Fox did say, hey, you know what? I don't like Brown that much. Or none of us know really, to be honest. So there might be more that might come out that none of us have no idea about. So those are interesting points. What do you guys truly think might be happening, or is it just straight out negotiation tactics?
Well, in my opinion, if there was a ringing endorsement from the players in their exit interviews, that would make an owner more likely to sign a coach and keep him. And I'm not saying there wasn't. I'm just saying I'm trying to read between the lines here.
No, of course. Thank you. And then another thing, I know a while back it came out about the Valanciunas stuff, which I take with a big grain of salt because he's not going to be a backup center. But it did have me thinking, because the way the team's made up right now, it's just not working. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, what if we went a different direction? What if we went big, Sabonis and Valanciunas? I know the spacing would be terrible, but I mean, if Fox keeps shooting, if Monk stays as a starter, if Keegan keeps shooting threes, you have 3 guys that can shoot and then 2 behemoths. I know it's kind of old school ball, but I'm just trying to think of other ideas because the current makeup doesn't really work right now. What do you guys think about that?
Look at the Western Conference. It's old school ball right now. The Mavericks got a couple of bigs. The Minnesota Timberwolves have a couple of bigs. I think the key to that, Alex, is if Sabonis can improve his 3-point shot. And I know
if he
that's
can extend his game. Yeah.
It's been
Listen,
one of the points.
If Valanciunas wants to come to Sacramento, I'll go pick him up at the airport. I love the guy. I think
and take him to Bennett's too.
Yeah.
No, definitely. So I was just thinking that because I think most people thought if we signed him, he'd be a backup, and I never once thought that because
he's a backup.
Yeah, definitely not. So I mean that's something too. And then last thing, I listen to you guys of course a lot, and then a lot of the Sacramento beat writers like the James Hams of the world, I kind of check out what they say too, just to see different perspectives. I like hearing different thoughts and opinions. And they've been talking a lot about Kuzma versus Brandon Ingram, and almost all of them are saying Ingram is way better than Kuzma, a way better option. And I'm kind of on the opposite end of that. I'm kind of thinking, 1, Kuzma's on a better deal. 2, I feel like, he plays a lot more than Ingram does too, which the best abilities of availability. So maybe I'm off on that, but I like Kuzma a lot more between the two just because of the availability and the contract. I don't know what you guys think about them too.
Well, I'll give you some numbers here about Brandon Ingram. First of all, he is a better player than Kyle Kuzma, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right, he is. But I'm going to read you some numbers, okay? Here are the numbers that Brandon Ingram has played by season, beginning in his rookie season, and then I'll go beginning his rookie season to where he is now. All right, now understand that one of those years was the shortened season. All right, rookie season, played 79 games. Then he played 59, 52, 62, 61, 55, 45, and 64, respectively. I don't want him. Don't give me a guy that I got to pay a ton of money to that's only played 70 or more games once and never even made 65 games in any of the other seasons that he played. Why would I want him? He can't stay on the floor.
Here's the other thing, and Grant, I'm in your camp as well. The physicality. Brandon Ingram is not a physical player. Mike Brown wants his players to feel the other team. He wants the other team to feel them. And with Kuzma, yes, there's not as much upside as Ingram, but Alex, you hit the nail on the head. The contract is fair. It goes down every year through 26, 27 for Kuzma. And I think it's a really good fit, a better fit out of those two.
No, yeah, that's actually a good point, Ryan, because I think a lot of us think since the Pelicans beat the Kings so many times that, any Pelican player is automatically more physical, better, dominant, but he's probably the least physical of that squad, right? Versus their other wings they have, the Miles and all those guys. So, anyways, thanks for that. Next time I'll have my hair done. Sorry about the messiness, but you guys have a good night.
All right. Have a good one, Alex.
Listen, you make a great point about the physicality. The Kings, to me, were a bunch of pillows on the court this year. They're soft, and Mike Brown can't get a team that is he needs a couple of new players downstairs in order to get that physicality. I would agree with you on that. I love Valanciunas. I'm a big fan of his. As far as Ingram versus Kuzma, Ingram doesn't play enough games for me, and he's not proven that he can stay on the floor. And for that reason, based on the numbers that you were throwing around last week to me, Ryan, I'm not paying him that kind of money for a guy that can't get on the floor and stay on the floor.
No, look, New Orleans had a better season than the Kings this year, right? Why are they getting rid of him? Why is there such a push to build around Zion? There's a reason behind it, Napes.
Yeah. All right. Hey, I want to tell you before we adjourn for the evening, Sunrise Landing, go to CalusaSunrise.com. That's CalusaSunrise.com, and you can check out everything that Sunrise Landing has from Blazona Development. 6 models to choose from, no Mellorews, no homeowners, great access to the major arteries like I-5, Highway 45, Highway 20, adjacent to the Calusa Golf and Country Club. Again, just go to CalusaSunrise.com and check out everything at Sunrise Landing. That's Sunrise Landing from Blazona Development. And trust me, Calusa is a beautiful community. I think you're going to really enjoy it. All right. Some final thoughts, my friend?
Hey, it's a great conversation. We've got plenty of off season to keep it coming. It's negotiations, Grant. This is what happens when agents are involved.
Absolutely. All right. So please subscribe. Yes. Give us a thumbs up because we're going to be doing a lot of shows. We got the draft. We got free agency coming up. Ryan and I do a lot of shows after these playoff games. So hit us up. We very much would love your company when we're on the air. And there's the QR code for you.
Absolutely. You guys make the show better. Thank you to everybody that called tonight and all the chat. Love seeing the names in there.
All right. For everyone, thank you very much. Talk to you soon right here